This is The Raid, exposing the dark world of America's deportation machine. I'm your host, John Carlos Frey. Pedro Trujillo is a seasoned organizer with extensive experience in immigrant rights advocacy, currently serving as the Director of Organizing at the Coalition for Humane Immigrant Rights of Los Angeles, or better known as CHIRLA. CHIRLA is one of the nation's largest and most effective advocates for immigrant rights, organizing, educating, and defending immigrants and refugees in the streets, in the courts, and in the halls of power. Welcome to the podcast. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for the invitation.
Just give me a little background of the work that you do at CHIRLA.
Of course. So we're a large organization, and the organizing department, which I'm a part of, I'm leading the organizing department. We have organizers all across the state of California. The organization itself, when I first started, we had 3 organizers. I was one of 3, and now we have over 15 organizers. And we're actually in high schools, colleges, and with families as well that we're working with. We do advocacy, education, and legal services at the organization. And sometimes we do a little bit of press, like what we're doing here today, with the intention, of course, of bringing information and the latest to the community. We're a membership-based organization, which means then that folks are dues-paying members. We have over 50,000 dues-paying members that support the work. The membership itself lets us know, they inform the organization what policies we should work on the following year at the state level and locally. So some of the issues that have come from the advice and requests of the members have been working on dream resource centers for undocumented youth at high schools and colleges. The driver's license bill, it's already been over a decade that we've had that in place. And then what's an example? The California Dream Act would be the other example, and the other policy that we worked on for some years to make it into a reality. And a lot of work and many years of doing this work. I've been at the organization for 14 years. Started as a high school youth organizer, became a college organizer, family organizer, senior organizer, and now I serve as a director of organizing.
So if I got this right, you are kind of a liaison between what the community is looking for or needs and trying to turn that into some kind of advocacy at the state level or the national level for legislation, for changing policies, what you're seeing as far as the need is concerned, right?
That's right. And I think we also help the community members learn how to do it themselves so that they can also advocate for themselves, so that they can also ask for improvements in the quality of their lives. We've had folks also come in with other specific needs not related to immigration as well. And so we refer them to other partner organizations, whether it's around housing, food security or insecurity. There's some cases that are too specific, where like domestic violence cases, we take some of those, but sometimes we have to refer them out to another organization or another private attorney that we trust.
But today it's a little different.
Today, yeah, we're.
You're not advocating for the DREAM Act. You're not
right. Today it's since November, the focus has been around how do we protect the community and let them know their rights, and then how do we support them going through this process of detention and potential deportation. And it's been an endeavor that we started as soon as, we didn't even let November end. I started reorganizing the Rapid Response Network, the RAID's Rapid Response Network. I was a part of it 8 years ago during the first Trump administration, and then had to lead this time around. Many of the people that we were working with 8 years ago have moved on. And I want to say maybe only a third of the people that were part of the Rapid Response Network 8 years ago.
Can you tell me what that is?
Yeah, and so it's a in its name itself, right? It's multiple organizations that are coming from faith, labor, other nonprofit organizations, law firms, that we're over 85 organizations that have said we're here to stand with immigrants in Los Angeles County and to try to support them in their needs during these dark times of mass raids and mass deportations. And we've the last time around, how that looked was mostly pro bono attorneys that were the ones supporting cases and supporting families. But 8 years ago to now, a lot of our organizations, including CHIRLA, our legal service departments have grown. And here we have Caresen, for example, of Los Angeles. We have Immigrant Defender with, I think, over 100 immigration attorneys. And we didn't have the scale that we did then. But even with the amount of attorneys that exist today, we're close to capacity, or in some weeks at capacity, in supporting, and meeting this need, this demand that exists because of the amount of operations that we've seen in our community. Mutual aid is a big piece of it as well. A big part of the work around rapid response, because if one of the breadwinners is detained for a long period of time, then bills still have to be paid. Kids still need to eat. And so it's become really important to sometimes even go deliver bags of food to people's homes, especially if they're afraid to go out into public. The elderly immigrant community is especially vulnerable. Just about a couple of weeks ago, we were helping out a grandmother who's she's taking care of her grandkids because the grandkids' parents both were detained, and so we were able to help them out. We were able to cut a check for them to support them with that month's rent. But what happens after that 1 month? There's only so much. There's a finite amount of money that we can provide people with. And this is where it's important that governments also respond appropriately and do their part in supporting their residents.
Just on that particular story, you're saying that the grandparents were caught up in some kind of a raid and detained and left the grandkids by themselves?
No, the parents were caught up in immigration enforcement. And so the grandma had to take care of the kids now.
I see.
Yeah.
When someone like the parents are detained, is that the proper legal term? Detained?
Yeah, detained, yeah.
I mean, people typically would say deported, but that might happen, or it might
They
not
might,
happen.
yeah, right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in that particular case, the mother and the father were detained. The children, how old were they?
I cannot say. I don't recall, but they were school-age children.
Okay. So not old enough to take care of themselves.
That's
or
right.
to have a job, I'm assuming, or
That's
to
right.
drive a car,
That's right.
something like that. Okay. So they're left behind, for lack of a better term, and they don't have a legal guardian now. So you went to the next, or they went to the next available. What happens if there isn't grandparents? What happens to the children? Law enforcement doesn't consider that when they're actually apprehending people. Is that correct?
So that's why it's so important for families to have a family plan and do some type of work prior to.
Can I stop you there?
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
you're suggesting that families have to plan for mother and father to disappear.
Mm-hmm. Families need to really consider we tell folks prepare for the worst and hope for the best, because we just don't know. Everyone's up for grabs at this point. It just feels like there was a time when if you were able to prove that you didn't have a record, that you had been living for a substantial amount of years in the United States, if you had U.S. citizen children, that was taken into account and that you were released or given discretion by federal agents and immigration agents. That's no longer the case. And so it puts the burden then on the families, the immigrant families, to create some type of, again, emergency plan, just like how you would prepare for an earthquake. We tell folks, don't wait until you're detained to try to figure those things out, because it's going to make it really difficult. Oftentimes, people in detention, you might have heard that they might not even have access to a phone, right, to call their loved ones. So how are you going to let your sister or a family member know, hey, can you pick up the kids?
So your job as a community organizer is to try as best as you can with the resources you have to fill in the gaps. Maybe the parents need legal services. Maybe the kids need, as you say, a month's worth of groceries, or to try and stabilize at least the household in any way that you possibly can.
That is part of the work. And the other aspect of it is, how do we get these folks together? Because now there's hundreds of families who have experienced family separation, who have experienced the trauma of a loved one being battered by these agents when they were being detained, because they're becoming more and more violent.
What do you mean by battered?
That they come into the detention center with a bloody nose, a broken limb.
Why?
It seems that the
Are
tactics.
they resisting?
It seems that the tactics of Border Patrol, that Border Patrol started, this whole idea of, what did Bovino call it? Turn and burn, or burn and turn, is that the agents need to come in and out in 10 minutes, which for an agent, if somebody is saying their rights to you, or a group of people are telling you their rights, that just doesn't, you're not going to wait around to hear their rights. And so what we've seen and documented is that they come out running at people, masked with their weapons, sometimes even throwing a flashbang first or a smoke bomb. We don't know if it's even what it is, right? Some type of device that releases smoke. And that's their initial interaction with the public.
It's not a knock on the door.
It's not a knock. It's not asking you, are you a U.S. citizen? It's chasing people, right? And so sometimes the fight or flight kicks in for people, and running is seen as agents. They'll tell you that running is a probable cause to detain you.
You're describing almost incitement. If I don't know who's knocking at my door or pounding at my door or throwing a flashbang, I'm going to try and protect my family or myself. You're saying this is a tactic. This is part of protocol. This is how Border Patrol are now behaving, right?
And that's what that's why it's so important to document these practices, that we're saying, like, hey, of course a person might run if they're afraid for their lives. It's almost instinct.
Not
right?
Almost.
Yeah. And so we really have to, but of course, the Border Patrol would say otherwise and give us a whole different story. And so people are getting hurt more often now. And so the advocacy has gone from not just being what we're seeing in the streets, not just from family preparedness, but even now to hospitals. So now agents are going into hospitals and being bedsides, which is a HIPAA violation, to bedside like 24 hours.
Wait, can you explain that a little bit?
That
they suspect the person who has to go in for treatment because they've been injured as being undocumented, so they have a Border Patrol agent on standby in the hospital.
Some type of federal agent. And so you'll hear me say oftentimes federal agent versus specifically saying some type of local law enforcement, because then the pushback from press or pushback from the government, it was not ICE that was there. I'll say federal agent. So a federal agent at the hospital, they were with a family member in this last case in Harbor, UCLA. I want to say it was a little bit over a month, I want to say. And I can get you the actual numbers. The family could not visit their loved one at the hospital because the agents would not allow it.
What happened? Why was that person in the hospital?
One of those incidents where they must have tackled this person and they broke some body part. So it was a serious injury that they needed to be in the hospital for that long. And we've seen other cases that are similar where hospital staff is asking, hey, I need to speak to my client in private, and the federal agent does not want to leave the room.
So a doctor can't visit without an agent being present?
The agent being present, right.
Or a lawyer or...
Right.
Okay.
No access to the attorney there on set.
What about I know we're kind of dancing around here,
but
I mean, you're bringing up a lot of things that I want to ask you about. What about the violations of human rights or civil liberties? If there's excessive use of force, if the agent who's trying to arrest this person or detain this person breaks a bone, and this person isn't necessarily resisting or doesn't have firearms or that sort of thing, can I file any sort of a charge against the agent?
In theory, yes, but we're just starting to see some of these cases. Let's go back. So here in Los Angeles, we started seeing a rise of their operations and these tactics in June. They were already doing their day-to-day activities, the federal agents, at, let's put in quotation marks, normal scales, right? They upped them with the Border Patrol presence, which then led to the National Guards and Marines being deployed here into Los Angeles, right? When they were at the height in June and July, we saw the resistance of people, right? And people coming and saying, hey, like documenting abuses, saying, this is unnecessary, this is overreach. And we saw that U.S. citizens were being detained as well. And so just maybe like a couple weeks ago, we started hearing about these cases from June, mind you, that they're starting to sue the government. And U.S. citizens saying that they were illegally detained, that they went into the workplace, a private area, illegally. And so I can't tell you that it will be successful, but I'm starting to see some of those from June. So I'm guessing the information, the evidence gathering, the finding your counsel takes some time, and we're not, was it October? So a few months it would probably be that we're behind in cases.
If I had Christy Nome sitting next to you, and I would apologize to you first for putting her next to you, she would basically say that they have the right to do that. These people have violated federal immigration law, that Border Patrol aren't necessarily municipal police or community police. They don't have to knock. They don't have to have a warrant. You don't have any rights. I can come in and arrest you in your workplace, in a hospital. I have the authority and I have the right to do that.
The U.S. Constitution says otherwise.
But these are undocumented people who, at least the administration is saying, don't fall under those rights.
The U.S. Constitution says all people, right, regardless of immigration status.
Everyone within the boundaries of the United States has certain rights.
That's right.
Guaranteed by the Constitution, if you're documented or undocumented.
That's right.
But why do they say otherwise? Is that a lie?
It's probably a safe bet to say that it's a lie, or it's an exaggeration, or they're trying to recreate reality. There's different ways of really thinking about this, of what their intention is behind it. Mass deportations are not possible if you let people know their rights after you detain them.
So it's different than when you were a community organizer, 4 years ago, or the first Trump administration. They were doing it by the book.
So 8 years ago, they would still do some of the things that they're doing with less violence and less cruelty. What we saw 8 years ago was still an increase, but it was probably quarterly that they would be in Los Angeles County. Every quarter, they would come, pick up about 100 to 200 people in a week or 2 weeks span, and they would leave. They would go to another city, maybe move up the state or down the state, depending where they were at in their campaign. And but now we're just seeing it that constantly, daily, they're targeting Home Depots for people, day laborers looking for work. They're targeting car washes. Almost every day that we've been able to document, at least for the Rapid Response Network in Los Angeles County, these operations.
And your organization put together some numbers as to what part of LA County they're going to the most, right?
Yeah, and we started seeing that with our volunteers, our over 1,600 volunteers that make up the Rapid Response Network. We showed them what we were about, what we're looking for, what we want to document, and how to stay safe in these times. And with this, we were able to compile some heat maps, and also by zip code, right? We're able to see by zip code where we're seeing most of the activity. And the highest activities, or where we're seeing the most amount of activities, were in the San Fernando Valley, in Cudahy, in Bell Gardens area, which in Pico Rivera, which happens to be large population of Latinos living in those areas when we're looking at the LA County map, right? And so this was part of the basis that we brought forth to our attorneys that do litigation work, for them to start building up the case against the Department of Homeland Security, which is now known as the Perdomo case, which is against roving patrols, which is against their targeting of people based off of where they work. Again, there's Home Depots and car washes. And I think they were even detaining people if you were speaking Spanish. I think that was another case that was brought forward. And the other part of the Perdomo case is access to counsel, where immigration attorneys were denied entry into these detention centers in downtown LA. It's called B18. It's near Olvera Street. And so we just had a court hearing a couple of days ago, last week, where the judge was requesting updates from the federal government, and where our attorneys were making their case that even after the injunction was put in place, so temporary, not the injunction, temporary restraining order was put in place, that the detention center would still unexpectedly close, and people were not notified, attorneys were not notified, even after the temporary restraining order was in place. And I think the attorney for the United States was saying that they were still trying to figure out what was the best way of notifying people that they were closing the detention center, which I think the judge didn't think it was good enough of an excuse.
I'm just sitting here, not even saddened by it, but none of it seems humane to me. So I'm hearing you, if you were talking about the way, I don't know, some kennel was treating dogs and they weren't feeding them properly or beating them or causing injury, I think everybody would be up in arms about dogs being mistreated.
It's barbaric, yeah. Yeah, and it's.
But you're describing something far worse to human beings, but at least according to the media, or at least some kind of a response, it doesn't even feel like we're talking about real people here. I mean, these are mothers and children, and you're talking about trauma, you're talking about long-lasting effects. Let's close down the detention facility so that people that are incarcerated can't talk to their attorneys. What's going on? I don't really get why the volume has been turned up so much. Do you have some understanding of that?
But it seems that there's some efforts to mute, right? To mute the cries of immigrants, and that people are kissing the ring, the Trump ring, right now. And
what's the purpose, though? Why this mass deportation? Why this cold-hearted tactics? Why, as you said, the cruelty? What's the point? What are we going to win here?
Oh, it's not about us. It's the
country. I mean, the government has an agenda. There's a reason to put in all these resources.
There's so much money being made right now of people being detained. These private prisons are cashing out. They're making record amounts of profit. And it really doesn't matter if you're a U.S. citizen or undocumented or you have quasi status. If you spend one night in a detention center and it's a private detention center, somebody's making money. Right, our tax dollars are paying for each night and paying these private corporations. Your question is a political question as well, which is that of where are we going as a country with all of this? And we've seen the response from the No Kings protest, where millions of people all across the United States stood up. And I was seeing people. I participated in the one in Los Angeles, and a group of our members from CHIRLA joined as well. It just shows the time we're in, where folks who would rather stay at home in other protests are saying, like, I guess I have to be a part of this now and activate myself in this way because we're concerned. They're concerned as to where the country's going.
I'm asking you more, though. You personally, you live here. You're brown. Do you get it? Do you get what they're trying to do? Okay, profit, I get that. I don't really believe that that's the reason, though. That's not like the main reason.
Right. I mean, there's second-class citizenship is.
It feels like hatred. It feels like ethnic cleansing. It feels it feels like we're going after a certain population because of the way they look or because they speak Spanish. Or I mean, what is the end goal? That if we got rid of all the people who don't have papers, the country would be more prosperous, less criminal? I don't know. Do you have a sense, or is it a racial component?
Yeah, I mean, white supremacy has a lot to do with it as well, right? But for me, it's like, first it's the money, right? The money that's to be made, and then tied to that is the white supremacy. But at the top is the profits.
I think it's a financial thing.
At the very top, the burden on Latinos would be that they have to be carrying around passports. But, there's no law that says you have to be carrying out your identification if you're a U.S. citizen. But some people, maybe they don't want to lose a few hours or a couple of days of their life. Who wants that, right? And that's not what liberty should be defined as either. So it's really concerning. And the white supremacy that we're living, I don't think we've ever experienced something at this level. I want to say even 8 years ago, probably it was, what was it? During the first Trump administration, I think over 200 policies that were around immigration changes. It was, or no bills that were signed into law. It was just administrative changes, administrative requests from executive orders, and limiting even legal migration, right? But I haven't checked the figures, but it feels like we're probably going to reach that 200 executive changes and administrative changes just in 1 year versus 4 years.
How many people have been affected in Los Angeles? Do you know how many people have been detained in LA County?
So the Department of Homeland Security is claiming that's in the thousands. I want to say, like, I think they said the last figure was like 6,000 that I've seen that were detained in Los Angeles. The people that have come to us at the organization is close to 1,200. And these folks, either they called from a detention center or their family members called us, or somebody witnessed someone being detained. And so they asked that person their name and date of birth, and they passed that information along to us. So then our attorneys can go do a legal intake and hopefully find that person to see and connect them with their family members. We've heard cases of people that were picked up in June and they weren't able to speak to their family members because nobody memorizes phone numbers anymore. The cell phone is so convenient for us that we have a number saved there. And so this person was not able to let their family members know. Nobody knew where this person was for a week, right? And it saddens me, breaks my heart to have conversations with families now where they're saying, hey, it's been 3 days. I've called jails. I've called hospitals. I've called the detention center. I've used the ICE locator, the online locator, and I cannot find my loved one.
That's common.
Yeah. And the heartbreaking one is when someone told me the last someone saw of my loved one is that they were unconscious when they were being taken. It's been 3 days. I just fear that they're dead.
In the detention process, in the arrest process, they were injured and they passed out somehow, or
they were unconscious when they were taken to another facility or in hospital. We don't know. And it's just unfortunate, right? And it's frustrating to not be able to have an answer for them. It's infuriating that they're not being transparent either, right? The federal government's not being transparent about that.
There are legal avenues for people who are in the country who are undocumented, if they have U.S. citizen children, if their children are old enough. There are legal mechanisms for somebody to regularize their status. But those people are also under threat. They're going through all the channels. They may even have representation. They may have an attorney. They may be court hearings and filling out the proper paperwork and showing up. But those people are also being apprehended, the people who are doing it the legal way or the right way.
Yeah, that's right. And unfortunately, it's a very unforgiving process that if you make a mistake in your application gets denied, you've handed over all of your information, all your private information, where you live, to the federal government. And they have been using that against people, right? It is not uncommon to hear that, especially in the Latino community, the Hispanic community, that folks go to a notary public. And this is where we hear a lot of cases of folks who then end up getting orders of deportation because somebody filled out something incorrect, and then there's some type of claim of fraud, and again, it's like there's a lifetime ban for those types of people who fall in that category. And but then even those that do it the right way with an immigration attorney that knows what they're doing, they're being sneaky in court now, where U.S. attorneys who were requesting initially to deport a person are requesting the judge dismiss the case, judge. We're no longer going to deport this person. We're no longer interested. I don't know what the exact language is used. The judge dismisses the case as the person is walking out, technically no longer under deportation order because they say we're dismissing the case. They're out of status, and so the ICE agents are waiting for them in the courts.
It's a trick.
It's a trap. And there have been some attorneys requesting for the judge to intervene, to not give in to that process, because as soon as that happens, people are getting picked up, and it's being a lot more common in other cities, but we did see it early on here in Los Angeles as well.
it's not that it's depressing. It's just that you don't really think that your government in a free society and a government that's supposed to respect the letter of the law, that this is the way that they're doing business. It doesn't feel like what I remember the United States being. I mean, immigrants have always been under threat, but this is a lot different. This seems a lot different. Let me ask you about you personally. You work for an organization that is considered by the federal government to be advocating for illegal behavior. You are aiding and abetting criminal behavior. So you're under threat. Your organization has been targeted. What's that like?
It's different times, right? It's the last time that 8 years ago, there was a lot of hate calls toward the organization, death threats to some of my colleagues because of the sentiment against immigrants. It's not easy to do this work with having that in the back of your mind, especially in an age of mass surveillance. We're hearing more of it as well. It's not easy with our families either. You know, my parents are constantly concerned when they hear that we have an activity that's in public. And so these threats and these efforts to intimidate us, you know, it's they're loud, right? We've never heard them at this scale, but it's just not like us. It's not like our organization to shy away from the moment and the needs of the community. We really want people to have a due process. We want people to see their day in court. We want people to be recognized for their humanity, their contributions to this country. You know, just 5 years ago, we deemed so many of the immigrants here in all the United States essential in the work that they were doing.
And who are these people that you advocate for the most part? They're not wealthy, I'm assuming. They're mostly low income.
Low income, people who've lived here for decades now. And many of them their roots are here in the country, have U.S. citizen kids, have graduated college, who have gone on to work for government. You know, many of the children of immigrants here that we've worked with and the programs. When I was a high school organizer, many of the youth that I work with are now working for a Congress member. They're working for their local city council member. They are running for office in a board of supervisors role in the Central Valley. And so it's folks that have done everything right. You know, they've worked hard, they've gone to school, or the children have gone to school, and really the only crime here was their efforts to have a better life here in the United States, right, and achieve what was then the American dream, which has become blurry to many nowadays.
But if I were to play what you just said back to a member of the administration, you know, in Washington, D.C., they would think you're crazy, because that's not the way these individuals that you advocate for are portrayed. They're possible terrorists. They're a criminal threat. They are ruining the very fabric of this country. That's why law enforcement is heavy-handed. Seal the border. Deport, you know, mass deportation was a campaign slogan. And the way that they're continually being portrayed, and the legal footing that the administration has to send in dozens of ICE and Border Patrol agents and to arrest everybody and to break down doors and pull people out of their cars, is because there is a criminal threat. You don't see that?
They're really good at sticking to their narrative, right?
But is that just fiction?
I think it is for the most part of what we've lived here I'll speak for Los Angeles, right? That we've seen so many folks who have given the best of their work years and left it here, right? Their labor, right? Their ability to provide manual labor was spent here in the United States. And on the other hand, it's like many of these people, all their savings that they've done in decades of working low-wage jobs, has now gone to paying a bond that's ridiculously high because they were detained, right? And because that's all they've been able to save, right? $10,000, $15,000. That's as far as they've gone after decades of working here. But it just seems that for this administration that reality does not matter, that what we've seen, what we see with our neighbors, because we're talking about our neighbors here when we're talking about immigrants in Los Angeles. It doesn't matter, right? If it doesn't fit their narrative, it's not coming out.
What's your background? Where do you come from?
I'm originally from Chiapas, Mexico. It's the southernmost state in the Mexican Republic. I came when I was 6 years old. I was undocumented for 24, 25 years, something like that, before I was able to legalize my status.
And how did you do that?
I was married in 2016 is when I got married. And in 2017 is when I was able to get my conditional permanent residency. And a few years later, I became a U.S. citizen. So I'm a naturalized U.S. citizen.
So if somebody says that you speak really good English, that's offensive?
To some, it's offensive.
I was born in Mexico, too. I get that a lot. So you don't sound like you were born in Mexico.
Right. Or I don't look like I was born in Mexico. Many people think I'm Asian or Filipino or something.
And what was it like being undocumented here?
It was really tricky. It was many years of struggling for my family. My parents worked in sweatshops. And so I remember asking my mom once, she was getting paid $150 per week. And she was working about 10 to 11 hours per day, 6 days a week. And it was really tough, to even as a child, seeing them, seeing how much work they had to do to
You
pay
were aware
rent.
of that as a kid?
Yeah.
That they were working,
Yeah.
that wasn't normal to you? You knew something was different?
I remember asking my mom, I might have been like 6, 7 years old, like, Mom, like, you're tired. She was trimming material from clothing. And I was like, we work with scissors all the time at school. Let me help you. I can cut. I can do what you're doing. That way you finish faster. And I'll never forget my mom saying, like, son, thank you for your help, but I need you to focus on your homework, because when you're older, I want you to work with your head and not with your hands. And that stuck with me. That really to the core of me, and really what helped me focus in school. Even with the struggles, there was no financial aid for myself as an undocumented student going to college. I had to work weekends at a restaurant and then be a full-time student. I commuted, so my college experience was not like your typical college student that goes to a dorm and has a car. I had to take a 2-hour bus ride to get to my university, do my classes, 2-hour bus ride back. If I ever woke up late, 15, 20 minutes, it was over. I was going to miss that morning class, because of the way the bus schedule works, the public transportation. But every day that I was struggling for like that, I was thinking, this is hard. When will it end? I kept remembering what my mom told me, right? And then I wanted to kind of do this right by her and do right by her and get that degree. So I was able to do it after 5 years, be able to graduate. And during that time is when I got exposed to immigrant rights work in college. And that's where I was interested in seeing how is it that people who have a common experience, how can we band together to make a difference, to change our laws, to convince people that we are not the ugly things that who is saying. So,
are you afraid at all with what's going on? Because, you have U.S. citizenship, sure, but it doesn't even sound like that will protect you.
I don't know what will come. I'm really unsure of my feelings at this point regarding the administration, what they're willing to do to sell a narrative, right? Because again, we have not engaged in anything that we've done wrong, and so, but for the narrative, for the initial impact, for the shock and awe, for the fear factor of it, it could be that in the future, myself or one of my colleagues is detained, and who knows for how long, right? And I've entertained that thought, and it's sad to think that it's come to that. It's sad to think that it's come to that. For many years, CHIRLA is too centrist for leftist organizations in Los Angeles, and now suddenly to the government, we're the worst of the left. So we have nothing to hide is what I'm trying to get at.
Advocating for undocumented immigrants or immigrants in general is not cool with this government.
Mm-hmm.
I think we can both agree on that.
Mm-hmm.
So you're kind of in the hot seat right now.
Mm-hmm.
You don't think about that in your family?
Mm-hmm. No, I mean, I think I'm convinced that we're not doing anything wrong, and that
It doesn't matter.
yeah, and people need to see some of these trends that are authoritarian-like, and to question them, and to really speak to their Congress members to really rein in their guy, because it's really we don't know how much worse it can get and how fast
You're not
it can
looking
get
over
bad.
your shoulder?
I mean, I was born in I was born in a very impoverished community. I was raised in a also impoverished community here in Los Angeles, and it's I want to say I have some thick skin because of it too.
I want to end with maybe allowing you to just basically inform me of what you would like people who are listening to this podcast to know.
Mm-hmm.
What's one of the most valuable or important things that maybe people who don't have direct experience with what you're talking about?
Yeah, that to see how they can support their local immigrant rights organization or mutual aid group. Many folks, not just immigrants, are really going through it right now, especially right now with the SNAP benefits being cut. Elderly, check in with your elderly community members, talk to your neighbors, ask them how they're doing, and what they're going through right now.
Do you guys need help?
We certainly do. It's different types of ways that people can get involved. It's not just about going to a protest. That's one step. That's one avenue. Boycotting is another avenue. Looking into holding some of these companies to account, and asking them that to use their money more wisely, as opposed to funding or accepting money from these ads and this propaganda against immigrants. Right? There's many orgs accept donations, like CHIRLA, like I said, is a membership-run organization, so folks can donate. 8 years ago, we received a donation from Alaska, $5 donation, and we're a California-based organization, right? And so folks from all over can donate to support the work. And perhaps the other way would just be to really, if you're able to do more, right? Organize your job site, organize with your coworkers, organize with your church. Ask that your church do more. It's just really a time for us to bring the community together, to support each other, and see how we can push back.
Spoken like a true organizer. Last question for me. Do you know what has become of that family where mom and dad got deported and the kids were left behind to be taken care of by the grandparents? Yeah,
they're still in detention, and in the Adelanto Detention Center, which is about 2 hours away from where we are at. And we do what we call wellness checks, with the families, and our humanitarian aid team is in communication with the family to deliver food for them, and check in to see what their next move is going to be. Some families prefer that their kids stay here in the United States because they have hopes that their future will be much better here versus in their home country. And then sometimes the families try to find ways to reconnect with their children once they've been deported from the United States.
How long have these kids' parents been in detention?
I want to say it's been close to a month now. Yeah. So we're also looking to connect with folks that do mental health. So social workers, and to do folks that can do some counseling for the family members, kids, even the people who are being released, which are very few, those that are being released on bond from detention, to connect them with mental health resources, because it's just the trauma is acute trauma and something that they've never experienced before. So it's rough on some of them.
Well, thank you for the work that you do on behalf of being a Mexican immigrant myself. And my family and those people who are like me, and the way that my parents came here. So I appreciate what you're doing.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. Thank you for listening to The Raid, available wherever you get your podcasts. For more information about our guests and the subjects we cover, please visit our website at theraidpodcast.org.